and welcome to another episode of the Connect Cape Fear podcast, where locals, travelers, and newcomers from all over the beautiful country come to find community in this great place that we call home. I am your host, Rob Rens with Signal Fire Media. Our guest today is Victor Fernandes from Fernandes Fit. Victor, good morning. How are you today?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me.
We've got a beautiful day here in Wilmington, 77 degrees, no humidity, full sun. Covered in pollen. Azaleas are in bloom all over the place. I love living here for days like today. How about you? Is this your speed? This is your weather? This is how you like to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is why we moved down here. During the time of year where you don't expect great weather, you expect colder weather, and you look what we have outside today.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. It's not for the summer when it's 148 degrees.
No.
It's for this time of year.
Well, when it's summer, you go out on the water.
Yes.
You be at the beach, you get out on the ocean, go to Masonboro Island, whatever it takes to have a cold water source and maybe some wind. Victor, how'd you get here? How'd you get to Wilmington?
Ooh, it's been a long circuitous route, I guess you could say. But the long story short of it is, my wife and I were looking to move further south. We were in Ocean City, Maryland at the time. We had moved there on a whim about 4 or 5 years ago. I had left the newspaper industry, had done that for 26 years, and was going to the fitness industry, and just decided to take a leap of faith. My wife and I, our youngest son as well, and moved to Ocean City, went to go work at a gym there. And we were there about 3.5 years, 4 years, loved it. But it was a little challenging to earn a good living there in a resort town where it's, if you're not in hospitality, if you're not in the hotel industry, that sort of thing, it's hard to make a living. Plus, the last year where we were there, we had 1.5 feet of snow one day. I said, well, you know what? If we're going to live here with a lot of snow, we're going to keep moving further south until Mother Nature decides to stop following us.
Yeah.
And this has been kind of funny here and I shared the story, and it's probably going to be amusing to quite a few people. My wife and I are big fans of the TV show One Tree Hill.
Okay.
We started watching it and started binge watching. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool scenery. Look at that background. Look at the water.
Yeah.
Wonder where that is. Had no idea at the time that it was Wilmington. And we did some research and found out it was here. It's like, why don't we go there on vacation, just check it out? And of course, just like we did with Ocean City, we decided right then and there, the first time we were here, that we were going to move here. So once again, we moved on a whim, and here we are almost 2 years later.
We need to, I don't know how you would do it, some financial modeling based off like Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill and all the shows that got filmed here. How many people saw it and were like, that's a cool place? Or even Outer Banks that's being filmed here in Wilmington now. How many people are like, where are they shooting that, I wonder? And then vacationing here and calling it home. I wonder how much has that contributed to people moving to this area? It certainly did for you. So we know one.
We know it definitely one. And I'll bet there's more than just one.
Yeah,
that's
probably.
For sure. I mean, the thing is, you see these TV shows glorify everything. Not to say that this place needs to be glorified at all, because it stands on its own. But when you see the scenery, you see the background, you see the trees and the water and the river, the river court in One Tree Hill, where over by the battleship, it looks so beautiful. You want to check it out. And then you hear it's in the South, nice weather, great people, great lifestyle, but still an opportunity to come here and earn a decent living.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to come here? That's why there's so many people moving here by the thousands every year.
Yeah, we're full, actually. I think I say it every episode. Builders can't keep up. There's nowhere to live. Give it a year. Let us catch up a little bit, and then maybe try again in 2025 or 2026.
Well, some will have to leave in order for new ones to come in. We'll
Brunswick
no
County,
vacancy.
Brunswick County, Southport area. There's tons of real estate down there.
Yeah, not as much as you might think now.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. One of the other things that I love about the Wilmington area, and we talked about a little bit off camera. You lived in Savannah for a while. I think a lot of times Wilmington gets compared to Savannah or Charleston. Some of those older coastal towns that served, as strategic ports through the foundation of the country. I learned something interesting. I took the horse carriage, horse-drawn carriage tour that goes through Wilmington. So we here in Wilmington, during the Civil War, Sherman's March to the Sea, he's famously burnt everything, with the exception of Wilmington. Did you know this? This is an interesting story.
I did not know that.
So Sherman did not touch Wilmington as a promise to his wife, because his wife is from the Wilmington area, and she made him promise not to touch this not to burn down Wilmington like he did everything else. So as far as like comparing to Charleston or Savannah, our architecture here is untouched. So we're on Princess Street is where our Signal Fire Studios are. So all this real estate that's around here, most of it is true to the area pre-Civil War, which a lot of cities that we get compared to, they don't have that. So the history here is amazing too.
And you have the nice balance, between what you see, all the history here, but also how it's growing, it's becoming more modern, but it's not selling out, for lack of a better term. There's a nice balance between the two, which I think is part of what attracted us here to Wilmington, as opposed to, we'd been to Savannah, obviously we lived there, my wife and I met there, so we knew what it was like there, and we actually just went there back in the fall. We took a trip down to Savannah, first time in probably 15, 20 years. Okay. And how much it had changed and how much more modern it had become. And you almost missed the old style, atmosphere there. Yeah. Just the history of it all. It wasn't lost, but it almost kind of got pushed to the background a little bit. You don't see that quite as much here.
Yeah, well, let's hope our historical preservation stays on top of that. Because I don't like seeing old cities. Just like, Rome, we went to Rome for our honeymoon. It was so interesting. Like an old building in Rome was built before 1400 AD. The new building is 1400 and later, right? So they kept all the historical buildings there. They don't we were talking about Portugal, European lifestyle, which we'll get into as we kind of talk about your business and whatnot. But save what's old. Like let's keep the history intact as much as we possibly can, and make it places where people can come and gather and learn and experience what makes this region unique and what makes this place somewhat special.
It's where we came from, or at least the people from here anyway, and it's how we got to this point. Yeah. So to be able to preserve that while still, certainly, modernizing the city that we all want to see, more opportunity here. You keep that nice, happy, medium, that blend. I think, you have a beautiful city that's unique in its own way.
Very much so. Very much so. So you were a newspaper man, and then you got burnt out on that. You said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm switching over to fitness. Can you tell us a little bit about how that journey originated?
Absolutely. I was in sports journalism for 26 years. Loved it. Covered a lot of great events. Met a lot of great people along the way. And I always vowed I'll share a quick story with you. I went to college at Fordham University, New York City, where I'm from. And I was going to be an attorney back in those days. I was going to go to law school, do the whole 9 yards there. I think LA law was, the big show back then when I was going to school. So it looked all, so dramatic, and really cool. Sat in on my first political science class, got about 10 minutes in. I said, no.
Not going to work for me.
If I can't get through an entire class, how am I going to do 7 years of this? Right. And then a career beyond that. So at that point, I said, well, what am I going to do? And unlike now, where college is like $1 bajillion a year now, back then it was somewhat reasonable to attend school. And you had an opportunity to go find yourself, like, as the saying goes. So at that point, I said, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to major in if it's not going to be political science? Well, so let me find something to do to pass the time while I'm going to class, taking my core classes, and maybe something will inspire me. Yeah. Well, I went to go work for the college newspaper. Okay. And they asked me, hey, you want to cover sports? Well, I'm a huge sports fan, have been all my life. Yeah. It's like, that sounds like fun. And the more I started doing that, the more I realized, well, I love writing. I love reading. I was the one growing up, my family would attest to this. I would read the newspaper cover to cover out loud. You could hear me around the house. And my parents still share that story like it happened yesterday. And so it's like, well, why don't I put those two together and make a career out of it? How cool would that be? Yeah. It would never feel like a job. And I did that. And for the first 24 years of my 26-year career, I loved every second of it. It was demanding. It doesn't exactly lend itself to living a healthy lifestyle because you're always on the road. You're working crazy hours. It wasn't uncommon for me to work until 1, 2 a.m. and then have to be up at 6 a.m. to get our young kids off to school. Right. So it didn't lend itself to a healthy lifestyle. So, but the last 2 years, I started realizing I dreaded going to a sporting event. How bad is that? Yeah. Sports fanatic like me not wanting to attend an event. I couldn't even sit on my couch at home and watch an event. I was so burned out. Yeah. And at that point, for me, I realized I needed to do something else. And at that particular point in time, my youngest son had been born. He was 13, now going to be 14 in July. When he was born, I vowed I was going to get healthy. I was almost 250 pounds. Wow. 248.2. I have that number seared into my mind on purpose because I always want to remember what that number signifies. And I vowed when he was born, and I know this is going to sound corny and cliche, but I was holding him and looking into his eyes. It was like a mirror. I was seeing myself. And it was the absolute truth, as corny as that may sound.
No, it doesn't. Every parent, I think, goes through that at some point. Like you're looking at a carbon copy of you, and it's like, I need to be better for this person.
Well, I started envisioning all those milestone moments, the first step, going to school for the first time, going to high school, going to college, graduating, getting married, having a career, having a family of his own, and wondering if I continued going down the path that I was, would I even be around?
Yeah.
As morbid as that sounds,
it's real.
I was almost 250. Who's to say I wouldn't hit 300 or 350? And with everything that could come with it, all the different health issues and potentially dangerous health issues that could arise from that. So I vowed I was going to change. And I partnered up with a health and fitness coach up in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we were living at the time. And I proceeded to lose over 70 pounds, 75 pounds over 14 months.
No.
And along the way, it was sort of a transition for me. We always, when somebody comes to me and says they want a coach, and I ask them, well, what do you want to accomplish? Well, I want to lose weight and feel healthy. All great, those are great thoughts, great goals, but everybody wants to do that.
Right.
And I've come to learn that those are the vehicles to something bigger. So we kind of talk about, all right, what would losing that weight do? How would it change your life? How would it impact other aspects of your life? And for me, I wanted to be uncomfortable. I wanted to shoot for things that I didn't think I had the confidence to do at that particular point in time. So as I started losing weight and realized, man, if I can do this, why can't I do this?
Right.
And if I can get here, well, why can't I get there? And over time, it was funny because for me, there were always people in there that were in better shape, had been doing it a lot longer than I had. And I would ask them a lot of questions. Hey, why are you doing this? Hey, what type of program are you doing? How'd you get to this point? And over time, people started asking me questions. So the roles started to reverse.
Yeah.
And one day I'm thinking, when I finally decided I was going to leave the newspaper industry and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do next, I asked my wife, I was like, well, what should I do? And she looked at me like that, duh.
Yeah. You're doing it.
Exactly. Who are you in front of every day?
Wives are the best at that.
Yeah,
they're like, hey, dummy, like it's right in front of you, literally. Yeah.
And it's hard to see that, from our vantage point. Outside looking in is a lot easier than the inside looking out. So I decided I was going to start my career, and that's when we decided on a whim to go move to Ocean City, Maryland, because we were on vacation one year, and we'd driving up down the main stretch, and I saw a sign for a gym. I was like, I'm just going to reach out to them just for giggles. Yeah. And never expecting anything to come of it. And 20 minutes later, I had an email.
Wow.
Hey, come in for an interview.
We need somebody.
Yeah. They had one trainer. That was it. They needed somebody else to help with the additional clientele. So 20 minutes later, I was in a gym interviewing for a job in a place where I didn't live.
Yeah.
In a completely different career that I hadn't even started yet.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if this isn't uncomfortable, then I don't know what is, and I want to pursue this. And 5 years later, here we are. I'm sitting here having a nice conversation with you.
There's probably a whole other podcast episode that we can get into, into the thinking of like the risk taking and all of that. But let's talk a little bit about Fernandes Fit and FernandesFit.com. You serve clients all over the country, you said. Talk a little bit about, what you do, who you serve. Like who would come to you saying, I'm feeling this guy through the lens of a video camera. I want to get in touch with him.
Absolutely. Well, the ideal client for me has changed over time in these past several years. When I first started working, I tended to work with older clientele, and I still do to a certain extent, because that's the population of Ocean City. So it lent itself to that. But over time, again, one of those moments with my wife having a conversation and pointing out something to me that I probably should have known all along but didn't.
Yeah.
I asked her, I said, well, I need to kind of change who I want to service. I want to really dial it in even more than I already have. I said, but I don't know who that is. She looked at me once again and who are you in front of every day? And what she meant is that we know how big networking is here in Wilmington. You can't trip and fall without landing in a networking group.
Yeah.
And I'd never really done anything like that before moving here. So that was uncomfortable in its own right. But the people I was around were people like me, aspiring business people, either people working just on their own or have a small team or have a larger team. And the connection that I made was with every conversation I would have, it would unfold much the same way. You see these people, you have these conversations out in public at these meetings, at these events, and they're spot on. Mm-hmm. They're confident, they're decisive, they know exactly what it is they're doing and how to do it and what decisions to make at what time.
Yeah.
And then you speak to them about their own personal health and well-being, and you feel like you're talking to a completely different person. The lack of confidence comes out, the doubt comes out, the fear comes out, the frustration, all those feelings we get when we're trying to get healthy and simply don't know how, don't know which direction to go. So I was like, well, why can't I help those people? I said, they're just like me. I was heavy and unhealthy and made every poor choice there was with my own lifestyle. Let me help them kind of navigate the pitfalls of trying to balance your personal life, your family, and your career. Because frankly, as business people, we, like we spoke off camera, it's really easy to be busy a lot.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much to do it 24/7. And we wear the sacrifice of our own personal health and well-being as a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Like we talked off camera, how many people have we heard say, "I'll sleep when I'm dead."
Yeah.
So
especially amongst the entrepreneur, small business owner or business person, right? It's that's so insightful. Sorry, keep going.
Oh no, absolutely. But getting people to understand that we don't have to sacrifice ourselves to be successful in the business world. We don't have to sacrifice building our personal legacy to build our professional legacy. In fact, we need to be healthy.
100%.
We need to be fit.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, all of it, to be able to be at our best. How can we possibly build that business that we love into what we imagine it'll be if we're not at our best? It just doesn't work. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, fitness is the absolute force multiplier, I think, that we have at our fingertips in our disposal. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because the more I think about it now, the more the people that I know that are within the business community, they seem to prioritize themselves last in a lot of different ways. It's like, if you have a family, most people I know are putting family first. And then as soon as the family obligations are completed, then it's business. And when they're within business, they're serving their customers or their teams. And then somewhere down the ladder of prioritization becomes me. Like, I'm going to take care of myself, when really you should reverse that. Can you talk about for how hard it is, or what you recommend for people who are, that's their kind of lifestyle? It's family, it's business, it's go, go, go. It's hard to develop the disciplines and the habits to maybe, take an hour for yourself where it's like, this is my exercise time. And then being able to establish just basic fundamental good nutrition, hydration, movement, things like that. What do you tell the busy clients, like how they can pull themselves out of that kind of hamster wheel and put themselves back on a path towards where they're taking care of themselves?
Well, a lot of it is it's getting to the root of the pain points, the excuses, if you will. Because what's the number one excuse? I don't have time.
Right.
I'm busy with family, busy with this, busy with my career. And realizing that it's not that we're too busy. It's not that we can't find time. It's that we're not willing to make time, carve out that time. The first thought to my mind, if you were to come to me and say that to me, I would say, you got 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we all have 30 minutes. Think about all the time we waste during the course of the day, binge watching Netflix, watching 3 or 4 episodes instead of one of your favorite show, for example. But all the time that we don't utilize productively, that's time better that we could say, all right, I'm going to dedicate this 30 minutes, this 45 minutes to my own personal well-being, however that looks. People, and part of it is that we think it's selfish. We as adults, we as parents, when we have kids, you have young kids, I've got a 13-year-old, my youngest, we feel like we have to dedicate that time to them, to the family, or to our business. And then if we happen to have a little sliver of time there at the end of the day, which very rarely happens, then we'll dedicate to ourselves. And that's what we tell ourselves. So when it doesn't happen, we don't feel utterly disappointed. Like, well, what I thought would happen is ultimately what happened. It's like for me, it's understanding that I cannot possibly be at my best for my youngest son, for my family, for my clients, if I'm not at my best. I know what I'm like when I'm having a call with my clients if I've only had 4 hours of sleep,
right,
or haven't had a good meal, or haven't had my workout, as opposed to when my diet is spot on, when I've gotten my workouts in and they're dialed in, when I've gotten a good amount of rest, and you can just sense a different level of energy. And if I can sense it, they can sense it. Yeah. And that doesn't look good on me because I'm not giving them everything I can.
Right.
Because let's face it, as business people, there's two abilities that we really have to hone in on. And that's availability and reliability. If we're not available, meaning if we're not there front and center for our clients, it's going to show.
Yeah.
And our clients are going to see, because if we can see it, they can see it. So ultimately we have to understand that taking care of ourselves isn't selfish, it's essential. Because if we can't, like I've said before, we can't be at our best personally.
Yeah.
There's no way we can be at our best for everyone and everything that we hold so dear.
Love it. Availability and reliability. And then to follow up on that, reliability is doing what you say you're going to do, right? So
that's it.
I am here for you, and then whatever we leave this conversation with, I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to do it well.
That's exactly right.
I love it. That's great. I'm going to write that down. I've never heard that before. Two abilities, availability and reliability.
I didn't coin it, but it's 100%
Well, we're going to give it to you on this podcast, at least on this podcast. So talk a little bit, Victor, about, one of the things that we do on this show is highlight, community efforts. And, you talked about the people that you serve, business owners and whatnot. Are there ways that you're able to give back through that, like with your time, talent, or treasure? Are there groups that you work with, or areas that you really like to, help underserved communities in this regard through your business?
Absolutely. I'm a part of Brunswick County Chamber of Commerce. There's a North Brunswick Chamber of Commerce as well. So there's always opportunities to give back, and the community support local businesses, local groups, because let's face it, we're all in the same boat, trying to make a name for ourselves, trying to build a business that we love, something that we're truly passionate about. So if we can't help each other, we're doing each other a disservice. I know for me, I have ultimate soft spot for kids, and I've coached youth sports for years, since my oldest son, who's now 27. I want to say he was probably 10 or 11 when I started coaching. Every sport you could possibly think of. Coach my youngest son's soccer teams, and I love working with kids. Yeah. But I said I have a soft spot for kids. I was at an event just the other night, and I brought out my prize wheel for the adults. But then there was two little kids, couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, came over asking about spinning the wheel. So of course they spun the wheel as often as they wanted to.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, have
keep
fun.
Spinning, have
Wear
fun with it.
Out.
And they won one of pretty much everything on my table. And even if they didn't win, they won it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good when you give back. I'll be honest, I think I get more out of it than the people
always.
I'm helping.
Almost always.
Special Olympics, I'm going to be a part of that here coming up here soon. And we've been able to do that before. I used to, not necessarily in this community, but I'd love to start a program like this. When we lived in PA, skating, hockey, figure skating was big. So my wife and I, our family, would go out and help special needs individuals learn how to ice skate. Had so much fun doing. I would love to start a program like that here. Yeah. Now that I'm talking about it, it's like, now I really want to start.
Now you really want to. Yeah, exactly.
It's front and center now.
Availability, reliability.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, like I said, this has been a year, especially where I vowed I wanted to do more within the community. Last year was kind of feeling my way around. Yeah. This year 2 here, I definitely want to become more, even more actively involved than I already am, because, like I said, I get so much more out of it, so much, pleasure and pride out of it than the people I'm helping. Yeah. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, you got a new fan here. That's for sure.
I appreciate it.
And I believe that probably some of these people that are watching are going to be fans of yours too as well. FernandesFit.com is the website.
Correct.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you after this, I'm personally ready to run through a brick wall. You got that coach energy to you where it's like, no, come on, we can do it. Like, we can push a little further, go a little harder, get a little bit more uncomfortable, because there's reward on the back end of that.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you, go through the website, reach out to you on social media. How do you want people to find you, Victor?
I'm pretty transparent. One of my coaches told me one day, he goes, I've put my phone number out there for 20 years because it's the only one I've got. So why not put it out there? So they can reach out to me by phone. I got no issues with that. 814-504-7774. My email's info@fernandesfit.com. You already pointed out the website, Fernandes Fit. I'm all over social media. YouTube, Fit Family Foundations, Facebook, Fernandes Fit on there, Instagram. I mean, I don't think I'm missing too many of them at this point in time, but there's a number of different ways they can reach me. So, reach out, let's have a conversation and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, we're all over the place now, right?
Yes,
it used to be you had to have the 3 A's in the yellow pages, right? if you were AAA FernandesFit.com, you were getting the most calls ever, but
yes,
now you can find us pretty much anywhere.
That is true.
Victor, I wish you the best of luck. Appreciate you for coming on the show, for what you do. I can just, quick testimonial in the sign off here, like being a busy person and trying to be a productive person, breaking myself out of that. There's been points where I haven't prioritized my own physical health and carving out time for myself. And that never, ever, ever turns out well. Because like you said, your energy changes. It's different. It's hormonal. You're producing less oxytocin, and the feel-good chemicals.
Yes.
And that stuff reverbs all around you. It's like an energy force field that people feel when they come into contact with you. So if you are a small business owner, an entrepreneur, a business person, I cannot recommend more highly. If you're struggling with that, get a coach. Get a coach and have somebody help guide you through that, because it will absolutely make a huge difference in your personal life and your professional life. And you talked about legacy. I'm glad to see that future-minded people think more and more about legacy today than they maybe did 20, 30 years ago. It's not about putting a name on a building or having something named after you. It's about all those lives that you touch throughout the amount of time that you have here on Earth. So take advantage of it. Get in touch with Victor, FernandesFit.com. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's going to do it for this episode of the Connect Cape Fear podcast. Until next time, go out and enjoy this beautiful place that we call home. And don't forget to shop local. Get in touch with people like Victor. And we'll talk to you next time on the Connect Cape Fear podcast. Thanks for joining us.